with their vision, passion, and perseverance. Oops. They are the Womenpreneurs defining the next wave of leadership imperative. Let's take a look at their journeys so far. Please welcome Chetna Sinha, founder and chairperson, Mann Deshi Foundation, the banker to the unbanked, empowering rural women through finance and entrepreneurship. Joining her is Kanika Tekriwal, CEO, JetSetGo, who disrupted the skies by democratizing a private aviation. We also have Aruna Narayanan, sustainability leader and investor and founder, Real Impact Solutions. An economist and policy leader driving innovation and thought leadership. Next, Ajaita Shah, founder and CEO, Frontier Markets, whose work in last-mile entrepreneurship for women has lit up lives across rural India. And Dr. Sonali Datta, Executive Director, Business PureLab, a scientist, entrepreneur, pioneering innovation at the intersection of research and enterprise. And moderating this panel, ladies and gentlemen, is News9's Executive Editor, Kartik Malhotra. Please give a huge round of applause for our esteemed panel of guests this evening.
Thank you, Samya. Oh, wow. Good evening, Abu Dhabi. Good evening, ladies, and very few gentlemen, thankfully. I think for once we can say that. Ajaita Shah, Chetna Sinha, Aruna Narayanan, Kanika Tekriwal, all of you, very, very happy to be literally the odd man out in this gathering. But I think we have some diversity here, not just in terms of more women than men on stage. And I think at one point a few years ago, there was this definition of panels being manels going around. So I think we at TV9, we at News9 have broken that, and I'm really proud of everything that we've done to have these wonderful ladies here with us this evening. Sonali Malhotra, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. So diversity, not just in terms of male and female, I think we've also got diversity in terms of all the expertise that all of you lovely women, lovely professionals bring to the table every day. We've got social entrepreneurship, we've got last mile entrepreneurship, we've got value investing, we've got aviation, wow. And it still happens to be a wow. And of course, we've got Sonali Datta here representing PureLab's medical sciences. Pretty much every single aspect which was once seen as belonging to men, now being challenged by these women and now really being shattered by these women. So let's first begin with a huge round of applause to everyone here. All right. So I believe, to make the most efficient use of time, let's divide what we want to put into perspective today into a few buckets. To me, leadership, and we are talking about the leadership imperative, to me, leadership is all about, number one, it begins with inspiration. Ajaita and I were talking about it yesterday. Ms. Sinha and I were talking about it just some time back. It begins with inspiration. It moves on to action. And from there, it's got to become sustainable. The sustenance becomes very important because you take an action, it doesn't work, it doesn't do the job. And finally, I think it also comes down to celebration. And all of these stories that you will hear today have pretty much ticked the box and gone well beyond that in each of these four constituents that we spoke about. So let's begin first. Chetna Sinha, ma'am, thank you so much for flying all the way from Mumbai and being here with us in Abu Dhabi. Let's first begin with inspiration. What was your inspiration when you started the Mann Deshi Foundation? And how does that inspiration now trickle down to every last person who you have been able to touch? And ladies and gentlemen, 1 million women entrepreneurs have been made, 1 million lives have been touched by Mann Deshi Foundation. So let's hear from you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kartik. And thanks TV9 and News9 plus Vicky to give me an opportunity to share my experiences. And Salam Alaikum, Abu Dhabi. You know, actually I had not decided. I never thought that I will set up a foundation or set up a bank. Born and raised in Mumbai, as a student, I got active in Gandhian organization. And when I was doing my undergraduate program, I went with the Gandhian organization to work in a drought-prone area, where I saw that temperature here is so much, right? But this is in the late 80s. When I saw women in May with the temperature of more than 48 degrees Celsius, breaking stones and getting their livelihoods or wages because there were no jobs. And that was such a shocking to me, and I felt like, you know, where do you see women, breaking stones? You see in Hindi cinema, getting life imprisonment where, you know, finally you get that, with that crime, you break stones. So I felt these women are actually trying to get their wages. And I decided that I would like to work with these women. And the most interesting part was that when they got their wages, they said, we want to do savings. And my obvious question was that, do you even have a money to save? But these women, they were saying that we want to do savings. Banks are not opening the account. And they were not asking for loans. They were not asking for subsidy. What they were asking is the safe place to save. So then I thought, why not set up the bank? And that's how we decided to set up the bank, gave a proposal to Central Bank of India. You know what happened? When most of our women, we mobilized the community capital, applied for the banking license to the Central Bank of India, and when we applied for the license, we didn't get the license. You know why? Because majority of our promoting members were non-literate. In the proposal where their names were written, there was thumb impression. So on that ground, Reserve Bank said that we cannot issue a license to the bank whose promoting members are non-literate. I was nervous. I came back to the village Maswad, in a very small village in Maswad. And I told our women that we are not getting the license. They were not nervous. They said, why are you so nervous? We will learn to read and write from today. And our literacy classes started. And we applied again. At that time, I didn't go alone. With me, 15 women accompanied to Reserve Bank of India in Mumbai. I wasn't sure what are they going to talk. But they said that you denied the license because we cannot read and write. They told Reserve Bank officer, we cannot read and write, but we can count. And they challenged.
Wow.
And they challenged that, ask us to calculate the interest of any principal amount. If we fail, don't issue the license. But tell your officers to do it without calculator and see who can calculate faster.
Oh, wow. What a story, Chetna.
That was the inspiration.
That was the inspiration. And here, we thought we were going to start with 4 buckets. I think let's add one more to that, and that is persistence, perseverance. And that is something, and of course, the confidence to go ahead and prove the central bankers that, hey, we understand banking better than you do. And I think that is something which obviously is inspiration, action, perseverance, everything rolled into one.
That's how Mann Deshi Bank started.
Fantastic. What a story, ladies and gentlemen. Mann Deshi Bank. Let's hear it for Chetna Gala Sinha before we move on. Ajaita Shah, let's come to another aspect of this. So, of course, one is something that Chetna Gala Sinha has pretty much championed the cause of banking the unbanked. And as she calls herself, she's the banker to the unbanked. But beyond that, there is enterprise to be created. You've got to make sure the story moves beyond earning money and saving money, but making money grow. And I'm not talking about passive investing here. I'm talking about really putting money to that good use, putting capital to that good use, and really having that confidence to go ahead and make a living for yourselves, for your family members. And that is where Frontier Markets comes in, doesn't it? Let me help you. I think it's on the green light.
Now it is, yeah. So first of all, I have to say that thanks to amazing leaders like Chetna, someone like me can exist, right? So in the 80s, when you were figuring out how to serve the underbanked, I was just born. I was literally just born. And I wasn't born in India, I was born in America. So for me to come back to India, today I can say I'm now 41 and 21 years of working in India. I leverage the beauty of what has been built by pioneers like Chetna and the government infrastructure where we did say that the power of women collectives needs to be harnessed to create savings, open bank accounts, and make that happen. But to your point, but then what? So you can provide a loan to a woman, but if she doesn't have a business to run and doesn't necessarily get customers and doesn't necessarily, catch up with like the wave of time, she's not going to grow. So what we did was we leveraged the beauty of what has already been built, and we said, let's bring technology, let's bring in data, let's bring in AI, let's bring in commerce. And we basically said that these same amazing women that I'm going to call them talwars, they're talwars. They
Talwars,
really
ladies and gentlemen, is
literally
a Hindi
like the
word
sword,
for
like they're the talwars of the entire ecosystem of the village of the society. But we have to actually, as business creators, see them not as beneficiaries, not as bicharis, right? Not as like poor people that need help, but see them as assets. And all of a sudden, we started seeing women as being the trust makers, the influencers. They're the ones that actually know everything that's going on in the village. So now imagine if you wanted to work with like an Airtel Payments bank or like an e-commerce company like a Flipkart who wanted to reach this mass market.
Yep.
To be putting this in context, 700,000 villages, 800 million people, all wanting to get access to services where they live, 15 minutes away. Where women come in is they become those assets. So what do? We invested in a tech platform, we invested in market linkages, and we actually made them become that talwar. So today, over 50,000 women entrepreneurs across the country are helping Bharat India be seen, and over 5 million families are getting access to services. These women went from earning nothing to earning now the Lakpati Didi. I don't know if you guys all know these phrases.
That's a government scheme. The target is to get women to
earn at least 100,000 rupees.
100,000 rupees
to become
every year.
Powerful. And so the idea was that we've made that happen. And now those women are accessing finance from banks like Chetna's banks because they have credibility, they have access, they have realities. And so there's a full circle of power. Now, to your point about business, what makes this really powerful, Chetna ji's already given you the beautiful story of these women, but imagine a 14-year-old girl that got married. A 14-year-old got married, and at 17, she had her first child. By 20 to 22, she then joined the self-help group infrastructure. By 30, she's become a Lakpati Didi, like earning 100,000 rupees. She has become the force of nature. She's become the PhD that understands technology. She's become the voice of the community, and she's ensured that her 14-year-old doesn't get married ever again and goes into education or becomes a police officer. So Lady Singham. There are a lot of Lady Singhams that are coming into this world, and it's because of the inspiration of the full circle that I think is powerful.
So it goes beyond just seed capital. It goes beyond just empowerment. This is pretty much a mindset change which gets institutionalized when there is financial inclusion to begin with, and when that is topped with a sustained and a continuous income that flows in thanks to business. But I want to stay with this entire social sector for just a bit. But before that, your stories, both what I've heard from Ajaita and Chetna Galasena, has just reminded me of a song made popular, sung by Sona Mahapatra. And I think that becomes absolutely relevant, that if there are 1 million lives being touched, if there are 700,000 entrepreneurs being created, mujhe kya bechega rupaiya? And I think that becomes a story of 14-year-old women not getting married at the age of 14, and that's the sea change that institutions are bringing to society. But I want to stay with the sector for just a bit. I know Kanika and Sonali are waiting very patiently. We have some time. We will come to your stories, but I want to bring in Aruna first. Aruna, the entire context of what you do and the community that you serve, ESG, value investing, can there be a bigger value than people in that entire people planet product mix? Is there any business which can sustain and tick any box, ESG or otherwise, if the people aspect, and when we say people, 50% of the people on the planet are women, if the people aspect is not taken care of, can any business sustain?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the lovely question. And when we ask people what is sustainability, everyone gives very complicated definitions, but sustainability is our ability to sustain. So before I get into ESG and technical terms, I think in all our lives, we need three things to sustain: health, wealth, and relationships. So only if these three are in balance, you have your ability to sustain. Right? I might have a lot of people around me, but if I have zero balance in my bank account and no health, having a lot of people around and focusing on people doesn't work.
Right.
So I think the way we phrase sustainability is people, planet, and when you work on these two, it leads to prosperity. So that's what we call, the triple P, and a lot of
Right.
companies now are reporting on their triple bottom line, which is people, planet, and prosperity. So now people are the enablers. So if you want to protect the planet, or if you want to generate income, or if you want to grow wealth, people are the ones who are the actors and who are the enablers. And I think that's where, it's like a puzzle piece where you mix these three ingredients and then your recipe comes out, because one without the other leaves the dish
I
tasteless.
hear you. I hear you. I just want to throw a few numbers at you.
Sure.
Please, pardon me throwing numbers. I'll try to keep them as simple as possible, but these are awe-inspiring. And why I asked you that question was that if the triple bottom line is so obvious and so relevant, the point still is that we don't see enough women in leadership roles. I mean, the five of you sitting here are exceptions. You're not the rule. And just to throw those statistics, Nifty 50, the benchmark index of the 50 most valuable companies by market cap in India. Can anybody here take a wild guess? How many of those 50 top companies in India have a woman CEO, a woman leader? Unfortunately, the answer to that is one. We have HDFC Life. We have one Nifty 50 company which has a woman CEO. Expand that. Look at the Fortune 500 companies. Among the top 500 most valued companies in the world, exactly 55 of them, 11% of them, are run by women. So while 1% may seem too low in the context of 11, or 11 may seem too big in the context of 1%, the point I'm trying to drive home is that you still have 89% of the companies run by men. So if triple bottom line is so obvious, why is it not getting implemented?
So let me respond to the controversial question with a slightly controversial answer and make the discussion more interesting. Kartik, I would say that I wouldn't judge diversity and equity by the fact of how many women are sitting as CEOs in big companies. I would say there are a lot of women who've made the choice to slow down, and I think that choice is a powerful choice. I have people within our company, Real Impact, who are IIM alumni, probably toppers in their class, who have chosen to slow down because they wanted to be with their daughters during their crucial years of study. It was not compulsion, it was a choice. So I would say, as much as we speak about this whole women agenda, and I can give myself as an example, I'd say sometimes you choose to step out of the corporate rat race because that's exactly what it is. And I did not want to run a rat race. And that's why you see a lot of women entrepreneurs coming in today. Because there are realities of the workplace. And I'm just going to take the liberty of being candid. And it's probably in the industries which all of you operate in, is there are certain toxicities when you are operating in certain ecosystems, and you just don't want to play that game. So what do you do?
Say devil's advocate? Sorry, I have to. So the other elephant in the room is ESG as a concept, people, planet, purpose, was like a CSR HR initiative. It was never a core part of the industry movement. There's only such countries, I would say UAE, or like regions, and I would say now, frankly, India, pioneering it and taking it much more seriously.
But Ajaita, wouldn't you say even that after the government made it mandatory, did we have enough companies? I mean, of course, we had the Infosys Foundations and the Wipro Foundations of the world, but did we have enough companies really undertaking CSR as part of their corporate social responsibility and not a box to tick?
I can tell you this of my own experience, because we've It's all about structures at the end of the day. Until I had an NGO structure, I didn't understand the power of corporate philanthropy. Let's be clear, India has 2% as mandatory. That's 30,000 crores, right, of money, INR, that needs to be spent. The challenge is not about the willingness to tick the box. The challenge is about co-creation.
Right.
So social entrepreneurs like Chetna ji or myself or others, we are stepping in a much stronger leadership role now and not walking up to a corporate saying, can I please have your philanthropy? We're actually saying, how do we better design your business and purpose goals that allows you to be more effective and scalable?
Right.
So it's a co-design, but it is happening. So I would not say that it's not, right? I would just say that, yeah, the 1% and the 11% you're talking about, we just have to get a bit stronger and more effective.
Absolutely.
In pushing the
Absolutely.
I appreciate a lot of the women who are making choices. See, because sometimes you get into a mode of compulsion. Let's say we have some of our friends from Harvard Business School who have done a degree. You go and invest yourself, do a degree, and then you kind of get into compulsion that, oh, now I have to go and become the CEO of a company because I have done 3 things. But you know, when the actual empowerment, and I'm kind of hesitating to use the word, but for lack of a better choice of option here.
Call it elevation of power, please.
I think the ability to make a choice, for me, is elevation. And 15 years back, when I came into the UAE, I'm a business owner here in the UAE. If someone had asked me, Aruna, would you ever start a company here in the UAE 15 years back, I would have said, hell no, I'd rather just get a job.
Right.
Today, I am a proud owner of a sustainability enterprise, supported by a lot of my friends here who, you know, kind of create that ecosystem for you to make that choice.
Right.
So for me, ESG is a reality. There's a long way to go, but it has to be in balance. Just focusing on people without focusing on, for example, the governance, which probably these 2 lovely ladies are working on. You have a lot of wealth, you have a lot of relationships, you have the people, but no structure, then the action doesn't move into impact.
I hear you. Absolutely. Kanika, let's move on, in fact, to you know, something that Aruna was alluding to, that many women take that active decision to not run the rat race. And now, thanks to entrepreneurship and startups, we are seeing a lot more women actually opt for that option. And who would epitomize that more than you, who pretty much had the sky as the limit? And that is exactly what JetSetGo does. It's democratizing private aviation. How does that work? I mean, how do you have the gumption to dream that big and rat high that you want to start a business, and the challenges that you had faced in your personal life before taking that step into the world of aviation, which arguably would be perhaps that one final bastion which the male-dominated society believed it controlled. And there you've shattered not just a glass ceiling, taken it 35,000 feet above.
I think, you know, a lot of things come to mind when you say this, especially given what my co-panelists have said. And for me, I think the only reason I've been able to do this is all the no's I've heard because I was a woman. You know, I wanted to become a pilot, and my father said, "Hamare ghar ki ladkiyan driver nahi banti hai," which literally means, you know, girls from our house don't become drivers. And I said, no, I'm going to be flying planes. And my dad said, no, but that's as good as being a driver and working for somebody else. People from our houses don't work for somebody else. And I think that was my inspiration, and that was my motivating factor to, you know, go prove them wrong and say, okay, if I can't be a pilot, I'm going to have a fleet of pilots. And when I started my business again, you know, I remember the first sales pitch we went to do. I walked into an office and I was the last person to enter. And the chairman of the company who we'd gone to pitch with, and this was 22 years old, a very different human to what you see sitting here. He said, excuse me, miss, can you ask everyone if they want tea or coffee? He didn't realize that I was the person who'd come to pitch this private aviation company to him to use. And I wanted to cry. Like, you know, I said, what the hell, you know, how do I react to this? So it took me a lot of courage to actually put myself together and say that I'm here to sell you my services, and, you know, this is what we do. And his first reaction was, you know, why aviation? You are going to fly a plane. You're going to operate these planes. You know, cupcakes are trending. Why don't you look at something more, you know, easy? Do a cupcake shop.
Did that hurt you? Did that make you angry, or was it just funny? I mean, you're laughing about it now.
You know, I'm laughing about it now, Kartik, but I think it was all the no's that actually, you know, inspired and motivated me to get that courage to prove these guys wrong. And I made sure I sat in that meeting, I closed that customer. Today he's our biggest champion, he's our biggest motivator. In fact, he very publicly says that before I met Kanika, I only had women as secretaries and PAs and EAs, and at managerial levels. Today he's got a board with a lot of women, he's got CXOs who are a lot of women. And it also made me realize that you have to be the change you want to be. You have to create a path for other women to succeed. And why you see a lot of women entrepreneurs, I mentor a lot of young girls, is simply because of what my colleague mentioned, that it's very hard for a woman to go out there and work in a corporate environment where you have to ask, okay, my kid's PTA is there today, or my kids have to, my kids are not well, can I work from home? I'll give you a simple example. We took an oath as a company to have equal number of women in the cockpit. And we did that. We put a lot of women in the cockpit. And one of our first young girls who was flying on the plane, a customer walked into the plane and then he calls me and he says, Kanika, you've put a cabin crew in the cockpit. I said, no, she's a pilot, dude. Like, what the hell? He says, no, what are you saying? She's so young. So, I said, what do you mean by she's so young? She looks pretty and she's young. So you assume she's dumb and blonde and she can't fly a plane. And then the cabin crew calls me.
Talk about stereotypes, should we? I mean, seriously, this is the textbook definition of stereotypes.
And the cabin crew called me after the flight and he's like, ma'am, he was reading the Hanuman Chalisa throughout the flight. Like, he was that paranoid about what's going to happen to him. And then he called me and he says, this is the best landing I've ever had in one of your planes. I said, yeah.
I was just going to narrate that story to you. The other day when I was flying to Europe, I was flying in an Airbus A380. It's a massive aircraft. Honestly, I think the best landing I have in my living memory. Women are just better at landing those massive aircraft, aren't they? Like many other things.
Yep. So, in fact, so I said, well, you were so doubtful that the girl landed the plane. Then he was trying to think of a reason of what to say. I think he just put the phone down. And I have data to prove that, whenever we've had two men flying in the plane, each tire wears out in about 86, 87 landings. And now it takes 142 landings. That's almost $60,000 a year saved on each aircraft. So, this is scientifically backed data. I'm not someone who is, gender specific where I say, I will only hire women or I will only hire men. But I think the challenge comes in, when these girls, when they become mothers, when they want to go on maternity leave. Now, for every business to give maternity leave of 8 months, 10 months turns into an issue. Now, when these mothers who are pilots ask you for leave, it becomes an issue. When this mother's an engineer and she says, I can't turn up to repair the aircraft, it becomes an issue. And I think that's why a lot of women are taking a different path, where they're being their own bosses. And I think, someone needs to put in some research to see how many women entrepreneurs do we have in this country. And that number is going to be astounding. I don't know if that data exists, doesn't exist. But I'm seeing more and more young girls today take charge of their own careers. I met a young woman entrepreneur from a village in Uttarakhand recently. Her husband used to beat her up every day. And whatever money she used to earn, like plowing the farms, etc., he used to take it from her and spend it on alcohol. And there was a company which went into her village and taught them how to grow mushrooms. And today she earns 2 lakh rupees a month. And she's divorced her husband, asked him to get lost. She's got 4 kids who are studying in a private school in the city. And I think that's the growth story we're talking about. Those are the women entrepreneurs we need to salute. I mean, more than us, I think it's those women who really need, a big shout out there.
You're right, Kanika. And I think there's a lot to really discuss and to sort of ponder over and ask tough questions of ourselves. I mean, the pertinent questions you've raised are, why is it that the mother has to take leave when the child is sick, and why not the father? And I think, with some degree of pride, I can say every time my child is sick, I'm definitely at home with her. So it also comes down to how organizations are structured. It also comes down to what are the value systems in place. But let's hope we have time to get into that as well. Sonali, Datta, thank you so much. I think you waited very, very patiently. But again, healthcare, STEM education, doctors, engineers, these are, at least my growing up years, and I'm 41, Ajaita is 41, at least in the 80s, 90s when you were growing up, I think the normal mindset was that engineering is something which is definitely for men. And we also saw, in fact, even in my MBA class, I saw there are more male MBAs who came from an engineering background than women pursuing MBA who came from an engineering background. I'm not an engineer myself. So I want to understand, again, STEM education, research, medicine, engineering, technical subjects, was that always a passion for you? Was that something you always wanted to pursue? Or did life just happen on its own?
So we're talking about the 80s and 90s. I'm from the 70s. So I'm from the 70s.
Right.
And at that point in time, the stereotype was that if you are good in your education, if you're doing well, if you're topping your class, you must become a doctor, provided you have a passion for biology. And I think that's where my path had started. So it was this general societal directive, and that's where you go. I started off that way. I'm actually a dentist by initial qualification. And I came to this country starting with practicing dentistry. I got myself licensed, and I worked through the whole thing. It was this point in time, a lot of ladies talked about women making a choice when you have kids. So when I had my second child, I had to take a short break from working, from practicing dentistry. And that's when I thought, I said, I have to do something which allows me to continue my work, to continue with everything that I'm doing. And I had a lot of passion in me, and this stuff I wanted to bring out. I didn't want to be that person just sitting at home. And that's when I continued. I said, okay, management is where I'll move to. With that, I can have a 9-to-5 job. At least I thought I would have one, with a 2-day weekend. It started with that. And building on from there, it's gone on to coming to this whole commercial side of things, where I find myself being the only lady sitting in the boardroom. Recently promoted to a position of Chief Commercial Officer, where I sit across people where it's mostly men. And yes, it is mostly men in the boardroom. And when you were asking that question, I was actually waiting to answer that. Why do we see more men in the boardroom? I think it is because of women. Because women, we take time off, we are at home to support children, and that is why men can thrive. But I also see that changing now. I see Richa talked about her husband taking care of the 1-year-old daughter. I'm lucky to have a husband who takes care of everything, including cooking. So when I go home, which is at maybe 8 p.m., 9 p.m., sometimes even later at night, I come home to a nicely cooked meal, hot, and that's because my husband is supporting me. He works, he has his own business, but he knows the hours that I keep. He's there, he supports me through everything. I think that stereotype is changing a lot. And people are choosing what they want to be, what they want to do, and there's a very good balance, at least coming into a certain part of society. That's how I see it.
Is he a good cook, your husband?
He's amazing. He's amazing.
Oh, fantastic. What is the favorite dish for you that he cooks for you?
It's mostly steaks that he does. So
wow.
Come home.
The stakes are high, guys. The stakes are high here. So great. I mean, I wanted to ask you, but perhaps it might be a little foolhardy, but I'll sort of roll the dice anyway. A boardroom full of men, does that make you feel odd, or are you used to it now?
I'm very used to it. In my organization, I'm called Superwoman. Not because I fly around. I think it's just my resilience. I've sat through it. I've sat through it a lot. Every time I get into a room where there are new people who don't know me, I've seen that the men start talking. They have their views and their point of views, and they go around. It's later when, as a woman, I listen to everything, and then I start talking is when they realize that, okay, we've got someone here who's an equal. And I've seen that change. I've seen their mindset change. So now, no, it doesn't bother me at all. I don't think they see me as a woman at all. They see me as a peer.
As a professional.
They see me as a
one
professional.
One among them, perhaps better at the job than many others. Fantastic. I think, I'm pretty sure we are coming very close to ending this discussion. But since we're talking about the leadership imperative, I think, a question that often needs to get answered but doesn't, or sometimes I believe gets answered incorrectly, is the style of leadership. And I think in 9 out of 10 cases, when you ask somebody, not necessarily a woman, when you ask somebody, what is it that a woman brings to the table, the answer to that is empathy. I think men bring a lot of empathy too. To give you an example, in 7 of my direct reportees, 5 are women. I think I'm fairly empathetic as well, arguably. But the point I really want to ask, and I think perhaps nobody better than the 5 of you to answer that, is there a different leadership style for women than is for men? Because at the end of the day, I've had male bosses, I've had female bosses, and oh my God, I remember some of the bullshitting I've got from my female bosses, it'll put all my male bosses to shame. So You know, I want to understand, is there a difference in the leadership style, and can you box them into a masculine style of leadership and a feminine side of leadership? Let's reverse the order. Sonali, let's hear your views first.
My personal style is transformational. And I feel women are less transactional, more transformational in their leadership style. And transformation doesn't mean it has to be soft. Transformation can be firm. So it is the need of the hour. And at that point in time, if you need to be firm to transform something or somebody, you use that leadership style.
So is that an individual trait, or do you rate that as a trait that most women bring to the table, in your experience?
In my experience, I've seen most women tend to bring that. We are, I think it's in our nature. We are mothers. We are used to taking care of people. So it's inherent in our nature. And we combine that. And there's, I think over the years and with experience, you tend to transform your own style. You develop a completely different, very unique style where you adapt to what is needed at this point in time, which could be a soft touch at that point in time. It could be something really firm. I need it now, needs to be done. I don't care, don't go home. It could be that as well. So I think we can work on both sides.
All right. Kanika, I would argue that could be true for most men as well. But what is your leadership style? I don't want to get into an argument here.
You know, I still do. I'm a Gemini, so I wake up with a new personality every day. And I go back to sleep with a different personality and a different leadership style.
How are you as a leader today? How does that compare with yesterday?
Let's just hope I'm a better leader today than I was yesterday. I'll leave it at that. But, you know, on a more serious note, Kartik, I think today's day and age requires you to be human leaders. And why I say that is, you know, you're dealing with this new generation. So I have a new chief of staff who's 24 years old. And
a male or a female?
Female.
Bias?
Very, no, so.
Was it merit, or was it you just wanted a woman subordinate?
To be very honest, I didn't even interview her. I let my leadership team find me a chief of staff who they thought would fit.
And that leadership has what ratio of men and women?
It's 4 men and 1 woman.
Okay.
So, but this young girl comes into the office and...
Just asking.
And so I have my CFO sitting on one side and I have her sitting on one side, and I'm asking them to develop a model. You know, I'm telling my CFO to develop this model of a new business that I want to do and give me all the numbers and all of that. And he says, yeah, it's going to take me about 7 to 8 days to put this together. And then this young girl sitting next to me in 10 minutes has used AI. I don't know what the hell she did. And she had the model ready for me right there, sitting next to me in 10 minutes. But my CFO will call me ma'am, you know, listen to all my nonsense. If I lose my cool, he will be very patient. And this girl, the one time I lost my cool when something went wrong, she said, thank you, Kanika, I don't want to work with you anymore. I mean, yes, I made sure she came back the next day. But why I say
How did you offer her an apology or an increment?
I apologize, and that's what I said. As a leader, you have to be very human today. You know, that's the key of it all. It's gone are the days. I've seen my dad, you know, yell at people and get his way done. I see my father-in-law do the same. I see a lot of my own senior leadership who's 60 plus do the same or 55 plus do the same. But I think whether you're, you know, as a woman specifically, if you're, and again, I mean, no bias here, but, you know, if you're passionate, you're considered aggressive is very true. And for women to, you know, get their point across, especially in a country like India, yes, it does take a lot more. You know, so if I tell a pilot he's doing something wrong, he's probably not going to accept it from me. But if my chief pilot, who's a 62-year-old male, ex-chief of Air Force, blah, 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 tells them the same thing, it'll be accepted, repaired, done. But that's for the older generation.
But again, if the chief pilot there is a woman, then would the feedback be accepted?
Think so. I don't even think they would accept a chief pilot who's a woman. And that's why if you look at all the airlines in the country, there is not one single woman who serves as a chief pilot in the entire country. And you know that's what it boils down to. I think there's no style of leadership that really works today in terms of across the board. You've got to be a very, very malleable leader, you know, who really changes their ways when you're dealing with a 24-year-old and a 32-year-old and a 62-year-old. And that's the only way you're going to survive in today's world. Yeah.
All right. Aruna, I will come to you. Ajaita really wanted to respond. There was something going on in her mind. I really want that to come out. What did you want to react to, Ajaita?
Sorry, you're hysterical, by the way. And I keep looking at Chetna.
This is me being serious.
I know you're being serious. Okay, so I'm going to say that for a very long time, for the last like 15 years, every time I was on an article, whether it's Forbes or Vogue or blah, 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 everyone always said, Tell us why it's so challenging for women entrepreneurs. Like, why are there not enough women entrepreneurs? And I got really annoyed because I said, excuse me, can we please understand that it's not challenging for women entrepreneurs? Entrepreneurship is challenging, period. But let me tell you why women are assets. And let me tell you what our strengths are. We are everything that you ladies have already said, but we're also multitaskers. We believe in partnerships. We understand resilience to me is such an important point because that creates patience in a very different way. And then you end up building to last businesses. One thing that we've been always coining ourselves as weakness, which I actually think in hindsight now is our strength. Women don't create Ubers of the world. They don't lie about their growth and then raise $250 million and are okay with having like lost businesses, right? Women are there where they practically design their business plans and they practically take the money that they need and they create profitable, sustainable, long-term businesses. These are strengths of women as leaders, and I can tell you this across the board of the 500 plus startups that I actually mentor, but also like looking at this as an ecosystem. So I don't want to just bring that out. Secondly, I think the point that you're bringing about in terms of men versus women, it's the wrong perspective. Fundamentally, it's about transformational leadership, which comes into values. And the example I'll give you, I always walk into a room and no one thinks that, well, now everyone knows that I'm the CEO. But otherwise, when I used to walk into the room and I had my CEO, my COO, and my CTO with me, they would assume I'm one of them and I'm not the CEO. So I had to like aggressively go, I'm Ajaita, because no one understood that Ajaita was a male or a female word, like name. And I'm like, dude, undefeatable women entrepreneur. What do you mean? But walking in, handshake first, and not getting mad about it. And then in terms of what you were saying in terms of the culture, you're right. 20-year-olds are very different to handle than 62-year-olds. And then imagine rural versus sarkar versus like samaj versus bazaar, right? Like there's a reality here that we are formidably able to recognize. It's not empathy, it's understanding. We go deeper. And we do actually understand how to navigate what is a complicated ecosystem. And I believe that we do that. Why? Because we also fundamentally are in a place we have to level the playing field. We have to catch up. The entire world, I'm sorry, they say it's 127 years, but for women can be equal leaders. We are trying to level that playing field, and that is why we are aggressive. We come in more meticulous, we come in better prepared, we come in to understand different dynamics of people, but that doesn't mean that the men aren't included.
Do you mean me, or is that a general
No,
trend
I think it's a
noticed?
we. I'm sorry, I'm saying we. Ladies, you agree? It's a we, right? But I'll tell you the difference is that we don't want to be inclusive or exclusive. We don't want to be exclusive. We want to be inclusive. So the example I'll give you, out of my 210 staff that work in the field with these 50,000 women entrepreneurs, 190 of them are men. They're men. And those are the men that kind of are in the meetings, and they're the ones serving the chai when the women are coming together for their meetings. Because it's about building customs, principles, values, and culture.
Sure.
And those things, I think, are leadership things. I don't think it's necessarily a gender thing, but I would still say I think women are more ready to do it.
Sinha, I want to give you the last word. I want to come to Aruna, who's been nodding in complete agreement, and now she's laughing. So I don't know. I mean, one could argue, and we will not get into that argument, but one could argue that everything that Ajaita spoke about women leaders is true for men as well, and may not be true for many women. But I don't really want to egg you on here. But I want to understand. You've been nodding very aggressively. Do you want to add to what Ajaita was saying in terms of your leadership style and your experience?
For a change, I'm actually going to agree with you.
With me? Thank you.
Okay, so let me.
Yeah, but it didn't come out.
I mean, for a minute, we all love stories. So let me just give you a bit of a context. So when I grew up in Mumbai, born in Delhi, raised in Mumbai, and for the first 5-6 years of my life, I was jumping walls with boys playing street cricket. It took me a while to get to that girl-boy differentiation in terms of, oh, he's a boy, he does and plays certain games outside, and girls play with Barbie dolls. That didn't exist in my childhood. And somehow that idea grew with me. So for me, when you ask about, going back to your first question where you said, where's the people in the ESG? You didn't ask, where is the woman in the ESG?
I said
right?
people, and 50% of that is women.
So I would stick to the people, because what happens is leadership styles are not man, woman, it's masculine, feminine. There are times when I have to be masculine
Yes.
in my leadership style, but what really matters is, are you able to get to a spot where you're authentic? Otherwise, leadership can tire you. And I'm saying this as someone who's been in corporate roles, who's been there as an entrepreneur. And if you don't learn to get to that spot where you are in your own skin and you're authentic, it can really tire you and it can affect your mental and physical health. So for me, the leadership style is very present because I can't copy paste my leadership styles, and I wouldn't want to distinguish it based on gender, but I'd say feminine and masculine are two elements of leadership.
Right.
And just for me, it's about being as real as possible.
Authenticity at the end of the day
And being
is what
vulnerable
matters.
sometimes is okay.
And I will have to wind this discussion up, but not before giving the last word to Chetna Gala Sinha, ma'am. You bring the maximum experience here on the stage, and I think a few of us combined would not have as much experience as you do. But I really want to understand your leadership style. What you've done is there for people to see. It's for that 1 million women to feel every day. But if we were to just try and pinpoint, if there is, how do we move the needle on fixing that one critical element to level the playing field that Ajaita was talking about?
Sure. You know, Kartik, when you talked about empathy and all these, it was going on in my mind was that what do women bring on the table? And I very strongly feel they bring wisdom. And when you say that, and let me tell you also the experience which I've got while building the digital banking at Mann, Deshi. We were like, having best technology, Accenture, HSBC were supporting us to do it, MasterCard, and having all these digital card, credit card, everything. And village women who have never been to the school, they were ready to use these cards and digital wallet on the phone. But they said that, we don't want PIN number. And we were like, we'll do financial literacy, we'll do digital literacy, you will remember the PIN number. They said, no, find some other solution. So then we said, okay, and then women said that, what about biometric, what about Angutha? And we said, that is a great idea, why don't we use it? So we adapted a biometric to do the digital banking, and women use their digital wallet with Angutha.
Yes.
And you know what they said? They said कि मेरा PIN number तो कोई भी चुरा के ले जाएगा, लेकिन मेरा अंगूठा कोई नहीं चुरा के ले गया.
Right.
Anybody can steal my PIN number, but nobody can steal my thumb. And as Kanika, you were mentioning, right, that money goes to like liquor. So they not only wanted access, but control on finance. And when we found out that solution, you know what women said? That when you are designing any solutions for poor people, for women, never give poor solutions to poor people. They are smart.
Right.
So I would stop here and I say that this is the wisdom they bring in, and the needle is listen to them. Maybe they have something more and more wiser than you to suggest. So it's very important that you listen to poor people or listen to the people from whom you are finding the solution. Don't try to teach them and advise them.
Right.
They know what they want. Thank you.
I'm definitely a little wiser after hearing that, but thank you so much for that wisdom. And thank you, ladies, for everything that you're bringing to the table, for being inspiration, and for really taking that inspiration forward, translating it into action and into creating sustainable businesses. It's been a pleasure being the odd man out here. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we're taking a break. We now have our colleague Sagarika Bhattacharya here to take the proceedings forward. Sagarika.
Thank you so much, Kartik. Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sagarika Bhattacharya. Namaskar, Adab. Well, up next. Well, in an unpredictable global economy, he represents a new generation of wealth leaders who see opportunity where others see uncertainty. As founder, CEO, and chairman of investments at Lamer Capital, he has built a UAE-based investment powerhouse that helps clients, especially women, adapt, preserve, and prosper, even in volatile times.